What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, coming at you not really live, but, as most of us have woken up this morning to the news that Arthur Smith has been let go. We're now in another coaching search. 3 years into this thing, it was not going in the direction that Arthur Blank wanted. You can argue that, hey, what did you expect for the first 2 years with the roster you had? But this third year was really the nail in the coffin. You didn't necessarily make any kind of progress offensively, which is what you were brought in here to do. After 3 years of, selecting offensive weapons in the first round, you were ultimately undone by bad QB play, as a lot of coaches are undone by bad QB play. I hear the argument a lot that Arthur Smith, didn't utilize his weapons well. Well, each of the 3 years, the prospect that he drafted did break some form of record, whether it was franchise or whether it was NFL in general. But nonetheless, the product at the end of the day was subpar. That was the biggest thing. That was the biggest complaint from a lot of people, and I think Blank finally felt it, finally saw it. In a sense, you made no progress. You won one game out of the last 5. You were dropped 7 out of the last 10. Third year in a row, you finished with only 7 wins. Third year in a row, the Atlanta Falcons are picking 8th overall. The big deal is whoever comes in, whoever the new coach is going to have to nail the QB position, because right now that's the biggest thing that's holding us back. Ultimately, that's what was the undoing of Arthur Smith, was bad, inconsistent QB play. Because when the QB play was halfway consistent, the offense looked decent. The offense looked like it was making progression. You had multiple 400-plus yard games, but you couldn't get it into the end zone on a consistent enough basis. The first time in 30, 40 years, you win an entire season without scoring 30 points in a single game. So, the product speaks for itself, unfortunately. The inconsistencies and the bad QB play are what ultimately undid Arthur Smith here, and his time in Atlanta will be remembered as a guy who did not endear himself to the media with his harsh, gruff attitude, his dry sense of humor, did not necessarily endear himself to the media or to the fans. And in the famous words of Keith Armstrong, you're not good enough to be an asshole. So that's where it lies, right? We go into 2024 missing the playoffs yet again in a prime opportunity to win the NFC South. It came down to winning in New Orleans and the Bucs losing. The Bucs obviously didn't win, but it didn't help that you got blown out in the last game. We're going to talk more about the New Orleans game tomorrow with the rest of the guys. But yeah, that was a bad look, straight up and down. You couldn't stop a nosebleed these last couple games. So it's really going to come into question of this coaching staff yet again. Now you're going to try to churn the roster yet again. So I wouldn't expect a huge, instant turnaround. There are rumors swirling around that Arthur Blank wants to take a swing, a big swing, whatever that means. That we've already been tied to Belichick, checking around in there, and that doesn't thrill me one bit. And I think as Falcons fans, that necessarily shouldn't thrill you, because outside of Brady, what has he done offensively, at the QB position? You watched them the past 2 years bounce back and forth between Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. So that doesn't really, he installed a DC as an OC. That doesn't give me a ton of confidence. There's also rumors linking us to Jim Harbaugh. What it looks like is that Blank doesn't want a fresh new face, maybe. The last 3 coaches that they have hired have been coordinators, have been first-time head coaches. So he may be looking to get a coach that can hit the ground running, per se. That doesn't need a ramp up, which, I don't know. The only one out there that gives me any kind of confidence is Jim Harbaugh. And I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to pry Harbaugh away from Michigan unless the NCAA investigations are heavier than we're expecting. So that's something to keep an eye on there. Whoever they bring in is going to have to nail down this QB position. And, like, perfect example is if Brock Purdy hadn't turned out, like, how would we be talking about Shanahan and his swings at the QB with Garoppolo and Trey Lance? So it doesn't matter where it comes from. You have to get this QB position correct. You have to get it right, and you have to do it pretty quick, because if not, I don't care what coach you bring in. Without consistent quality QB play, this team isn't going to do much, as you have seen these past few years, especially these past 2 years. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to get in here on and, share the breaking news with y'all. If you haven't seen it yet, Arthur Smith's out after his 3rd year. Terry Fontenot is still in position, but it sounds like Blank and Rich McKay are the ones that are going to head up this search with input from Fontenot and others in the organization. That may make you feel some kind of way. It is what it is. It's his prerogative as far as the team is concerned. A lot of y'all are going to feel like, well, if McKay's involved, we're doomed. Maybe that's the case. Maybe things don't get better until we get a new owner. I don't know. We'll see how this plays out. But, yeah, we'll have more to say to that tomorrow. Join us live, 7 p.m., as we talk about the end of the season and talk about what the future is going to look like. All right, Falcons fans, appreciate y'all. As always, y'all can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Graham1128. As always, Falcons fans, rise up.